Truth and Tea with the Urban Evangelist. Welcome to Truth and Tea with the Urban Evangelist.
It is Truth and Tea, the podcast that filters life through faith. I'm the Urban Evangelist, and I'm so glad that you could make it back. As always, today we've got an interesting and inspiring conversation. I know finances sometimes may not inspire much, especially if they're hard to come by, but it depends on the kind of financial habits that you adopt and from how early on in life you adopt them. Joining me today is someone who enriched the discussion and conversation. She's here to pour out of her financial cup. She's a financial advisor and also the founder of Z Kidpreneur. Her name is Chimfwembe Mulenga. Welcome to Truth and Tea.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm happy to have you.
I'm glad to be here.
I guess even my kids one day will thank you based on what I may learn and pick up from you today.
Yes.
So you are a financial advisor? Is that what can I call you?
I think I would say an educator more.
A financial educator?
Yes, for children.
All right.
Yes, so we basically, Z Kidpreneur, I'm sure I'm running into the first question to talk about ourselves.
Right.
So Z Kidpreneur is basically a multi-award winning academy. We mentor children between the ages of 4 to 20. Mm-hmm. So we don't only focus on financial literacy, but we broaden it to personal growth topics. So mostly, how we came about is we saw the gap in our education system that we have had before, where they were just teaching the technicalities. No one taught us about life itself. So we decided to come up with courses that teach children about life, such as, first and foremost, all of us have had our financial crisis once in a while. And we also touch entrepreneurship for children. So letting children know you can start earning from a small age. In as much as we teach them about money, we must teach them you have to earn that money.
Right.
We also teach children public speaking because I grew up a very shy person, and then when I love doing things.
A lot of us.
Yes.
Yeah, I was very shy too. Yeah.
Now you come into this world where you love to talk to people, but you don't know how to talk to people, and you start learning it as you grow older. So we also teach children public speaking, and whenever we have events, we give them a chance to speak to the public. And then lastly, of course, I believe God gave all of us a talent. And I believe that if we can all develop those talents, so that's where the skill development comes in, is we open doors for children who have talents. So if they love painting, we engage them with professional painters and they go through a course with them. So basically that's what we do for the children.
I love what I'm hearing. What I want to ask is, do you work, as a silo, or are you also working in conjunction with, some of our school curriculums? Because when we look at our systems, and as far as education goes, these are skills that are perhaps sometimes overlooked,
yes,
in the curriculum. So how do you then rope your children in? How do they come to where you are? And how do you also get out there to reach even more children?
Okay, so basically when we started, our goal was just giving courses. So we advertise, parents say, I want to register. But then we noticed in saying we're only targeting a certain audience because most people on social media are the urban parents, so those and so then we started firstly reaching out to schools, saying this is the program we offer, could we come on board and give afternoon activities? Of course, schools will be more leaning on what the Ministry of Education advises, so it would really be hard to tackle that. And then because the schools are run by people who never had these things in their growing up, so they feel it's not relevant right now. But then the need, so there was the financial literacy launch last year, and we were asked to speak to advocate for financial literacy in the curriculum. Thankfully, this year we had the president, they launched it now in the Ministry of Education. There's now a curriculum for financial literacy. But then, of course, it doesn't end there. There's all these other courses like you've stated. So right now what we do is we've partnered with different organizations who tell us, okay, let's go to rural areas, let's go to urban. So we've now broadened it. And at first we did start small, but then now I think we've just broadened and said, let's just go out there and spread the word.
It's interesting to hear, and I'm excited to hear that actually financial literacy has now been adopted.
Yes.
So well done, for being part of the voices that have been advocating for this.
Thank you.
Back to the age that you begin to, take children through financial education. I've got a 4-year-old, and I'm thinking, what foundational skills does he require in as far as, saving
Yes.
and even earning goals?
We get that a lot where they say, 4 years, are you sure?
Right.
How am I going? I don't even take my 4 years to sit down. How are you going to? So basically when we decided to create this, we thought, how do you grab a 4-year-old's attention? And in the middle of that, as I was thinking, and then my niece starts singing that Baby Shark song. And I'm looking at her, and she's not watching, she's just singing it. And I'm thinking, there it is, through song.
Wow.
So we started creating songs that actually teach children. Saving is keeping money aside for future use, and the child is singing, and we started singing songs of currency. We had a parent calling, my child is telling me from Botswana they have the pula, and she's only 4. How did you do that? And we said we just literally went, so we go to the level of children, and we think like children. What do they love to do? Do they love puzzles? We create puzzles saying what saving is. Do they love coloring? So we just go into a child's world and just give them that information in that form.
Okay, so you basically make it age appropriate for
Yes.
them. And it's also is it just about them just being able to grasp the principle, even though they might not be able to apply it just yet?
Yes.
He's not going to be putting aside 10 kwacha every week, you know what I
Of
mean?
course,
But
yes.
is it about getting them to understand just the fundamental principles?
So basically that's where we start from, is getting them to understand saving is. So what we do is we'll talk about it, and then now luckily enough, like today as I'm here, there's a school that we work with that have gone to ZICB and having a bank day. So they've gone in the bank, they're going to show them the ATM cards. Thankfully, there's also a board meeting, they get to meet the board members, so they actually now have the feel. After we've spoken about it, now we take them into the bank and say, this is a withdrawal slip. I don't know if you've ever experienced where you're behind someone who's in the bank and they're taking long because they literally don't know what's on that slip. And
That's true.
we can't blame them because they never knew these things. So we want children to practice these things. Sometimes we just give them dummy withdrawal slips and say, fill it in. So we basically start with teaching them, then now we start the practicality. So by the time they're 20, it's something they can do even in their sleep.
Okay. You mentioned some of the resources that you work with, I mean, especially for those that might be of younger age, like puzzles. I would imagine, I mean, it is tasking to come up with the materials that they can use.
Exactly.
How have you worked your way around that?
Firstly, the DIYs on Google really help.
Yeah.
They really
So is
help.
it something that I can easily do as a parent?
So we always
Okay.
encourage parents, even if you have, so what we do is allocate a certain time during the week. If you say Saturdays, we have personal growth day. So you're talking to them about their personal growth, and then just Google DIYs. There are a lot of things that come up, how to make a puzzle. So sometimes we just use the cornflake boxes. We actually tell them to make them themselves.
Okay.
So we draw a big picture. They get to draw a big picture themselves, and then we just ourselves now frame it according to puzzles, and they cut it. So it's basically allow them to be part of it, but then it's educational as well.
All right. I guess when they're engaged and they're involved, it's more of a learning experience
Exactly.
than just handing it over to them, like,
Yes.
fill out this puzzle.
Yes, we asked the children the other day to create money notes, their own currencies, and you'd be amazed the currencies they came up with, the names. But then shockingly, most of them knew where the Bank of Zambia is written, a lot of them. So it's basically engaging them in it.
Wow. Amazing how malleable kids are. Eh? I guess it's best to instill these values before, they form more concrete beliefs, which are harder to chip away at when the concrete has hardened.
Yes.
Now tell me something. I mean, for children to come to you, obviously there's the involvement of parents.
Exactly.
So would this then pose the question that, is it parents who need a change of mind first before you can even begin to tackle the child? Because they're the point of entry
Is the
for the
parent.
children.
I think the children we deal with, most parents do see the need, I think, from their personal experiences. For me, one thing I started this is my personal experience, where you make financial mistakes, where you want to start a business but you don't know how to do it. So I learned from my personal experiences. So thankfully, most parents these days are really engaged. And of course, because they never had that upbringing, brings more children to us, so they can't do it at home, so they throw them over to us. But they are welcoming with their idea. There are a few hiccups here and there, but they are welcoming.
Do you find that parents that have more of an entrepreneurial flair tend to, display more of some of these principles like savings, like investing. And I asked this question because, I mean, I'm now going back into my childhood to try and establish who formed some of my habits.
Yes.
And, you know, having been raised by a single mom, and I remember she used to be an air hostess and the airline got liquidated, Zambia Airways.
Okay.
So to make ends meet, she's a great cook. So
Okay.
she began to make food, and I was involved in that, right up to even the selling of it. And I would see her put money away and save, and she'd be like, don't touch this, this is for your school, this is for your transport. Would you say it helps to have that entrepreneurial flair? And I pointed back to even the name Kidpreneur.
Yes.
Because you're kind of instilling that entrepreneurship even in the brand name itself.
So basically, when we started, we thought we're just going to deal with entrepreneurship.
Okay.
But then when we started entrepreneurship, we discovered there's so many components. There's financial literacy, there's speaking. That's how we ended up bringing up all these on board. So like you said, I like what you said, that you were part of it. So unfortunately, I won't say it's an entrepreneur mindset. I think it's basically more or less an African mindset. Because if we look at our friends from the Middle East, the other day I was getting something from a shop, from a computer shop, and there was a small child, and the father is literally walking with him at so this is from the eastern side of the world, walking with him at every point. Wow. I was asking about this, the father came and said, so this is explaining, of course, in their language, this is what she's asking about, you explain. So they have it as a habit. Even if you see the Lebanese, the Indians, they have it as a habit that once a child reaches a certain age, they are part of the business. So even though they do school, there is still the business so aspect of it. So I think and coming to lean on our side, we believe school. And it's very few parents that actually feel their children should be part of the business. So that's where I think the gap has always been, but is slowly closing up, where parents are now engaging. So coming to the question, in parents who are entrepreneur, I think, yes, they're the ones who are mostly engaged with allowing children to do such courses, because they've been through it.
Right.
So I think their experience is the best teacher, like they say. So they've experienced, they know what it is, and now they want it to pass on to the children.
Okay. And are you doing this with a team of people?
Yes, we actually do have a team.
What does your team look like?
So our team, because we're dealing with kids, I usually get students, UNZA students.
Oh,
so
right.
I mostly deal with the students. Because
so tell me something, just, is it also like a school setup?
Yes, so it is a school setup,
okay.
yes. But then we also do the outreach at most. We will do it because we've been doing a lot of outreach. So during the holidays, that's when now we sit down, tell the parents, okay, we have classes now. Then parents bring the children like normal classes. So we usually do it for a short space because we know children have been in school, so we don't want to get it. But then we work with young people and we make it as fun for the children as possible.
I was just going to get to when you actually get to do your enrollment, because there obviously will be a clash with the school. I mean, this is also financial school, right? It's financial education, like you said.
Yes.
What are the structures of learning like for the children?
So even as we talk to the children, we always tell them general education is very important. Like we always encourage them, go to school, especially for the entrepreneurs. You'll be shocked. A child thinks, oh, now I'm making money. I might as well. So we always encourage them. And one of the things we put is we tell them, your grades better be top notch. Okay. So we even tell them, so now we're introducing something like they do in the American world. Your grades need to be top notch for you to do other activities. Not saying those children who are not doing well in school, but just to encourage them to keep. So what we do is during school terms, we do weekend classes, but then we phase that out because we find it clashes with the children's normal school activities. Right, so what we've now done is only holidays. So we only have the classes during holidays. During school terms, it's basically outreach to other like rural areas, but during holidays, it's full-time classes.
Tell me about the outreach. It sounds very interesting.
So the outreach...
How are you infiltrating the rural parts of the country?
So the rural is actually, you're actually tackling two things.
Okay.
Because first you're going to a rural area. So first there's a language barrier, of course. So you have to speak. So now if they ask, how do you explain investment in a local language and everything? So the rural areas are actually interesting because when we ask children, do you know any bank? They think the normal Airtel monies. So children,
that's banking.
Yes.
So mobile banking is what they've been exposed to.
As banking.
Okay.
Ask them, Like I know a certain insurance company that has very low products, especially for funerals. And you find in the rural areas, that's where the funerals are usually cumbersome to host. So when we speak to them about insurance, none of them will even know what insurance is about. So it's awareness first that is really, so when we go in there 2 times more than we do to normal schools. Because there, of course, first we're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
We have to first educate the parents. And then now we have to come to the children. Because if we teach a child, they go home and they tell their mom and say, no, let's not spend this money, we must invest it. And the mother will just look and say, what is investing? Can we just use this money? So when we go to the low income areas, basically we go deeper, deeper, deeper. And we understand, even though we're working with a 14-year-old and who doesn't know what finance means, we still understand and we make sure we start from scratch.
So in the rural areas, I mean, like you said, I mean, when it comes to us parents, I mean, we've got our norms and, you know, beliefs already set.
Yes.
Do you find that you require, you know, some sort of behavioral change
In parents.
to take place?
So we were once asked, why don't you mentor parents as well? And we thought, okay, there are many people already mentoring the adults, but then we've seen the need to say we need to mentor the parents as well. So what we've decided to do now is bring family outreach, so where we mentor as a family. So where we say there's budget day, where you sit down during the month and create a budget as a family. So yes, the parents are very vital to the behavior of the children, because like you said, that's where most habits are brought up. So the parents are very vital to that.
Let's talk earnings. What does that look like for a child?
Earnings.
Because they're in school.
Yeah.
Where does their earning power come from?
Earning power. So most of them say they get allowances if we ask them. Some of them say, most of them actually say they do chores. And so we tell them making your bed is not a chore you should be paid for. So we do restrict them to
I live by that principle. Like, I'm not paying you to make your bed.
Exactly.
I'm not paying you to take your dishes to the kitchen and put them in the sink.
We have a lot of that when you ask, so what chores do you get paid for? For making beds. So firstly, that's why we encourage parents, general chores do not pay them for, because then they believe that everything I do in the house that is supposed to be done by someone else, I must get paid. So we tell them chores like cleaning the cars, cleaning the lawn and everything. So we encourage chores mostly. And of course, those who have allowances, but we do give small ideas, like there are ideas, dog walking, or selling of old clothes or old toys, or children who are good in a certain subject can actually train other children, like give classes to other children, because then it's the same level, so they understand each other. So those are things we encourage them to get.
It's amazing how, as you're talking, I've just gone back into my childhood, and I remember we used to live on a block of flats. And you know how you watch TV and you see, you know, like little Girl Scouts, they sell cookies from door to door.
Yes.
So my friend and I got this brilliant idea that would make, you know, some sort of cookies and sell them, you know, to our neighbors.
Yes.
And her mom was livid when we, you know, tried to do that. She was of the view that that would portray a very negative image, like, I'm not taking care of you, or we're suffering, or why do you have to send your kids, you know, to sell stuff?
Yes.
How do you break past some of these barriers?
So basically what we do is, if we ask a children, is it a passion? Because you can't go do something that you don't love. It's going to stress you. So basically what we do with the parents is we ask them, do you notice anything they're interested in? So we engage the parents as well as we educate them. We make sure, because like you said, a parent will think, oh, so now my child thinks or that, or now my child wants to start making money. So like most of the entrepreneurs we've had as children is baking, and the parents are actually part of it. They bake together, they sell and everything and all that. So we basically do that as well, to teach children how to earn, but also make the parents, because we always tell them, you are in your parents' house. So there's still, mommy, can I? Please may I? Please may I? So we do encourage that, yes.
And in terms of investment, how is that vision cast in front of a child? That, okay, you're earning now, but where are you going to put your money?
Yes.
And how is it going to grow?
Okay, so coming to investment, so what happens is there's a certain way we teach children investment, but then in our financial services, there are very few that are investment directly for children. So then we bring it on to the parents. So we ask, maybe probably have a conversation with children, tell them it's growing your money. These are the different ways, there's bonds, there's stocks, we explain that to children, and then we start to ask them to engage. So mostly our children are...
Wait, you talk bonds to children?
Yes, the
I
older
don't even
ones.
understand bonds.
The older ones. So we, of course, we don't go into
Okay.
detail. We'll just explain to them and say, this is what bonds are. So that as they're going into university, when they hear the word bonds, they said, oh, I remember when I was young, we did talk about that. But we don't go into deep detail. We just basically lay it out for them, a definition, why is it important, and then we now ask them to engage with mommy and daddy at home, which they do engage with. They come back with feedback. So like I said before, parents are actually helping with that, because then when we speak to them, we ask them to go speak to parents. So something like investment is quite for the bigger people mostly.
Right.
So we basically just give them the basics of that.
And which age group is that you tackle investments with?
So those are the older kids, mostly the teens. So from
teens,
13
okay.
to 20. Those are
Where do
mostly.
you cap the age?
So where we cap the ages, we know we have the children who are like 4 to, so at first we used to do it grades, but then we realized some children are quite very smart.
Okay.
So firstly, what we do is we have an assessment. So we assess the child just to know the basics that they know.
Yeah.
And then we're able to group them. We used to do age, but now we really just group them. But of course, 13 to 20, they're on their own. We teach them differently. So, sorry, 13 to 16 are on their own, 16 to 20 on their own, 4 to about 8 also on their own, then 8 to 12 on their own. So, because then we know what we can tackle.
Okay, so the 16 to 20s, I believe those would be the university students
Exactly,
now. All right.
yes.
And then here we're talking about student loans.
Yes.
Do we have discussions of that sort?
So we do talk to them about that, but mostly when it comes to that, we do engage the corporate world now, because they are the ones who are the experts. So we do engage, as we speak to them, we do actually bring on experts on board to actually speak to them about it. But we basically encourage them on student loans, like we say, paying back student loans. So that's where the credit talks come in, you know, how do you handle your credit and everything. But then, of course, we bring the corporates on board. Also because it's a plus to the corporates, they offer these things. So,
Exactly.
so that's how we partner with most corporates.
And have you found that some of your students have benefited from interfacing with the corporates, and as far as having accessibility to the loans is concerned?
Yes, there are a few students who've actually really done that. But then, of course, when you look at mostly the loans are through the government, the bursaries that are given.
Right.
But then we do actually tell them to say, oh no, there are actually certain banks that give out to parents, and then we engage the parents and say, you know, if you need that. So there's that type of engagement. So we have 1 or 2 children who've actually benefited from that.
Speaking of entrepreneurship, what got you started with what you're doing? Why this direction, and why children in particular?
So basically, why this direction? I think my experience as myself. And then now when you sit down, so I have nothing against all these conferences. I actually do go to a number of them.
Okay.
But then, you know, I had a friend who came to me. She's like, I'm going for another conference, so. And I was like, oh, nice. The ticket was, I think, about 1,000. And I said, okay. So, you know, she was like, you know, I've been to so many of these conferences, but I'm shocked I'm still the same. And I just looked at her and said, yeah, your mindset. Basically, because I think obviously everyone who's been there, there should be 1 or 2 at least who have a success story. And then she says, but then look, we had a conversation, and then we realized to say we were not taught these things when we were growing up. And like we always say, why do I speak Bemba and not Lozi? Is because from I was young, my parents spoke to me in Bemba, so that's what I know. So that's what I have grown up with. Why do I brush my teeth in the morning? Is because from I was young, they told me brush your teeth. So most of our habits have started when we were young. Most of our habits have started when we were young, and we realized, then why don't we bring the positive side of life to them while they are young? We start teaching them how to speak in public, how to be entrepreneurs, how to, you know, handle your money and everything. Then we can avoid so many mistakes that, and of course, being a mother, there's only so much you can do for your child. Once they're out of the nest, they go on, make their own mistakes now. So at least I thought, if we can create that environment for them, whereby even though they make mistakes, at least they won't be as serious as they were. And of course, the heartbreaking news we hear where people kill themselves because of debt, because of owing money. And you think, okay, this is something I've also been through. These are mistakes. And if people had guided, if we get certain guidance, I'm sure they would have not made the same mistakes. So basically, we looked at it as a long vision to say if we can start now, at least we know the future is going to be better and brighter. And I think even the president speaks about it a number of times in his speeches of how we need to start when they're young, to get them when they're young. Because they always say children are sponges. Yeah. Whatever they get, they grasp. So if we can do it in a fun way, well and good, let's get them and get them now.
You talked about public speaking earlier on.
Yes.
What does that look like?
So public speaking is shockingly, most parents enroll their children for public speaking.
Okay.
So wanting to
more
speak.
than the financial education.
So it's financial literacy and public speaking that are really topping right now. That's what parents really are engaging. So the public speaking is we basically teach them how to talk, because realize no matter what career you choose, even as a doctor, you have to go speak to your patients. Right. If you're breaking news, you need to know how to speak to them. So public speaking is we basically teach them how to speak in different scenarios. And where need be, like if we need speeches to be done, sometimes we throw it to the children and say, go represent us. Yeah. And the child will speak. If it's, we had Children's International Day of Broadcasting, that's where we threw the children. Now you'll find, because it's children, you have to be guiding them. So we thought then that's why we mentor them, so that we teach them how to do these things and they can start doing it from a young age. And you'll be shocked, how most of them at a young age can speak. And we once had like a speech day where people went to write that. And when I was listening, I thought, wow, this was not me when I was young. I would always hide behind the chair. Even when they just say visitors, come greet visitors, for you to come out.
It took a lot.
So that's basically, public speaking is very interesting for us, yes.
You mentioned you took some kids for International Children's Day of Broadcasting.
Yes.
So do you give kids an inroad also to some of these global advocacy days?
Exactly, yes.
You find ways to just create some sort of intersections.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. So that's what we do. So what we do is, now what happens is a company will call us, oh, we need this, do you have children? Oh, we need this, do you have children? So that's basically what we do is now when children are enrolled with us, because we know, okay, we do have a child who speaks, we throw them there. Yeah. Oh, do you have children? We need children for this. Oh, we throw them, we need 10 children we throw. So being part of this program also allows children to be exposed. So there's one child whose parent was even laughing and saying, I don't know how many corporate branded things my child has, because we've thrown them everywhere. Yeah. If this company needs this, we say, okay, here's a child, here's a child. So being part of us really does bring an intersection for the children and the corporate world. Because now if anyone thinks we need children for this, fortunately the first people they think is Kidpreneur, and then we do connect children.
And how many children do you have enrolled?
So, since we've started, I think maybe if I give you a rough number of...
When did you start, actually?
We started in 2020.
Okay, so 3 years deep.
3 years. I think we've reached out to over 2,000 children.
Wow.
We have managed to touch those lives,
wow.
At least I know.
Like in and out of your doors?
Yes, in and out of our doors, yes.
Is it a once-off course? I know you have your classes in between school holidays.
Yes.
So is that like one session and then they're done? Or do you have them coming back?
Okay, so something like
and how do you keep retaining them?
Retaining them.
Depending on the system that you're using to operate
okay, so
your SOP.
So some courses are once-off, something like skill development. Once we develop that skill, we let you loose. But we don't really let you loose, because when we develop that skill, now you become an entrepreneur. So we have to actually now educate you. So there's a way we package where it's a journey. So what do we start with? First, we need to teach you the financial aspect of life. Then now, not every child is an entrepreneur. So we ask them, what do you love to do? Then we brought them now, okay, there's the entrepreneurs and there's those with the talents. So now we break them. But then we always bring them back to public speaking, because say no matter what you do, you will need to speak to a crowd. So we always start them from financial literacy, then we break them, either entrepreneurship or skill development, then we bring them to public speaking. So it's really a journey for that.
And then how do you take it beyond that? Like when they leave your hands, is there opportunities for internship, perhaps with some of the corporates?
So we haven't really started that directly, but there's an idea. We haven't really started
pay me for it, eh?
We haven't really started that directly. But basically, when we let them out, when we release them from our programs, I think most follow-ups we do is checkups. We usually check up how is the child doing and everything. So that's basically, once we release them, most of them, unless a parent brings them back and says, oh, my child was asking about this, we do give advice. If they need, we call away, oh, Teacher Chichi, this, I want to find out this. We still keep in touch. We still keep in touch. Some parents say, when are you having the next classes? My child is missing you guys already. And we say, unfortunately, there's grade 1 and there's grade 12.
Yeah.
So we have to let them loose at some point.
All right.
Yes.
Where do you see financial literacy for children in the next couple of years?
With the way things are coming up, I think it will be now seriously in every child's mind. That's where we see it, because now it's in the schools, which is where the children spend most of their lives. This is where the children are. That's great. Now it's in the schools, so the schools will teach them the theory, but we also need to give them the practicality of it. So in the next few years, I think we'll have a better generation than we are. Far much better, that will help also, because what we do say is these children we're grooming are future presidents, future ministers. So they are the people who control the country's money. So if we get them now, imagine how they'll be able to control the country's money in the future. So it's also not only for them individually, and we always tell them it's not only for you, it's for your community and the country at large that you are learning these things. So we do speak to them about not being yourself. It's a community, it's a country.
And why is the topic of finances so important just for our well-being?
I think it's our everyday life, because when you go to your personal life, we touch every aspect. Your career life deals with money. Your Christian life deals with money. Because now what we're starting to do also is we have now churches actually come and say, can you teach the children about tithing? Said, first let me get my tithing right, then we can come to teach.
So how churches approach you?
We have a church approach, come teach children about, because finance is in the church as well.
Absolutely.
It is in the church. There is finance in love lives. There is finance in family life. So we've realized that finance is everywhere. It's basically everywhere in your life. As much as you try to run away from it, it is there, but we don't make it a factor of our life. We don't say everything revolves around money. Because there's a child who said, my mom said everything revolves around money. And I'm saying, I'm sure you're asking for something that she did not have money for, and probably say that. And we said, no, not everything revolves around money, because we don't want children to love money at the end. We just tell them everything, there is a financial aspect to everything in your life.
They say master money or it masters you.
Exactly.
Is there truth to that?
There is. There is. You know the money, otherwise the money will know you, and then you start mixing up things. But we always encourage to, and we say, even right now, I'm still learning things on finance. So we always tell the children, it's every day, learn, learn, learn. Even if you go on YouTube, like you were asking investment, type stocks for children, you'll be shocked what pops up. There is a lot of animation talking about stocks for children.
I'll definitely look it up, because my kids love YouTube. So if there's one way to get them to learn, then YouTube is definitely an inroad already.
Anything you type is there, and definitely there. We just always advise to monitor them with digital. The digital world is quite crazy. So we always encourage parents to monitor them as you allow them to watch these things.
As a financial educator, what's the biggest mistake you've made where finances are concerned?
You have the time? It's a long list. It's really, I think, handling my finances personally. And we don't say this, when a child asks and say, a child once asked me, have you ever made financial mistakes? And I've said, so many. And the child look and say, my mother doesn't say anything. And I say, it's not shame, but it's trying to teach from your experience. So it's not handling your money properly, getting into uncontrollable debt, not being able to save, not being able to take advantage of different financial priorities that are there. So for me, it's really been, it's a learning journey, yes. It's basically been how to handle money, It's basically in how to handle my personal finances. But like I said, it's a journey, and I think I've been learning and passing on the experience and the learning to the children.
Are you that auntie that shepherds your nephews, nieces? Are you a mom?
I am. I
How
have
many do
two
you
children.
Have? Okay.
Yes.
And are you drumming that down on them?
We are, and you know when they say pastors, there's always some myth saying pastors' children, don't you?
Yes. I like where you're taking that.
Yes, and I won't lie, there was a time where I'd be teaching, and then my children now come and say, Mommy, so, and I say, okay, I'm tired, can we talk tomorrow? But then I realized it would be very shocking if someone comes to ask my child and say, do you save? And my child says no. It would be very shocking and disappointing. So yes, we have, I think I've started that journey also with my children. And it's been interesting, and unfortunately, most of the time they say we want to save to buy you a present. So I said, no, don't save to buy me a present. Make it about you. So we always talk personal finance with children. But I've been engaging my children with it, and slowly we're getting there.
Great to hear. I mean, like you said, it's all work in progress, and it's a journey.
Yes.
And one that, this particular one, if we can call it a conversation, that's like been a journey for me, because I started thinking one way about this topic.
Okay.
And I've come out of it, thinking completely differently, right down to, okay, so my 4-year-old, I mean, I can inculcate some financial wisdom even at such a tender age.
Because if I ask you what can he do now, there's so many things I'm sure they can do at 4.
What he does now is if you give him a note, he'll hang on to it for dear life.
You see?
And he'll tell you what he wants to buy, exactly what he wants to buy over the weekend.
Exactly.
But there's a whole lot more that can be done, really.
So much more. And that's why we always encourage parents, engage with them. Just engage, because they're in your hands.
Okay, so I want you to, speak to parents right now.
Okay.
There's more parents out there.
So we encourage you, please engage with your children. Let them get into the financial world. It is very important, not only for them, like we said, for the community and the country at large. And it's always best to start them now. Baby steps, and eventually they will get there.
Was that pun intended? Baby steps?
Baby steps, yes. And we will get there, yes.
Chimfwembe, thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you so much.
It's been enlightening and enriching.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We're wishing Z Kidpreneur all the very best.
Thank you. We wish all the best to you and your team.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So it's been Truth and Tea. Remember that it's diligent hands that bring wealth, but of course that diligence requires wisdom to be passed on to the younger generations. And like she said, it's always best to catch them while they are still young and malleable. It's been Truth and Tea. I'm the Urban Evangelist. Don't forget to catch this show every Wednesday on Radio Christian Voice at 7 p.m. And also do check it out on YouTube, Radio Christian Voice and the Urban Evangelist. As always, it's been filtered through faith.